In today's lesson, we will discuss postcolonial theory and the foundation of this theory. Now, as far as postcolonial theory is concerned, it actually addresses the concerns of or the colonialism strategies of colonialism with regard to representation of the natives. It also highlights the colonial projects such as education system, such as writing of the histories or area studies. It also looks into the marginalization of the individuals or the natives. Furthermore, post-colonial theories also looks into the psychological effects of the colonialism not only on the colonizer but uh, also on the colonized, and then the apparatuses in the form of for example, introducing uh, English studies, which was a colonial project in Indian subcontinent, and the basic source of the main source of these English studies was English literature. So all these aspects of post-colonial theory are actually they have the basis, and the basis is, if we try to look deep into this matter, as Nayyar is of the view that um, this it was a kind of from finance perspective, that it was a madness. It was and this madness was created, and this madness was created by rejecting the individuality claims of the natives. And if we see that the psyche and how did they achieve? They achieved it by creating the differences, psychic differences. And what these psychic differences were, that the natives' psyche, it was repeatedly represented, it was savaged, and it was treated as inferior, which very much means that they were a kind of reptiles. They were a dehumanized figure of the native was established. And with this case, what happened was that the man, the category of man, is what? That the man actually means not a native, but not a native of Indian subcontinent or Asia or Africa or South America, but the native of the man really meant the white man. Um, Edward Said's Orientalism, a scientific study. And what Edward Said argues is that Europeans divided this world into the Occident and the Orient, the West and the East, the civilized and the uncivilized. And according to him, that it was this was an artificial boundary, and this created the bias of us versus them, or us versus their. In this regard, there were certain qualities or attributes were associated with the East. For example, inactive or lazy or primitive, and that giving these attributes to the people of the East automatically defined uh, 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 the Occidents as active, as rational, or as civilized. So with the issue over here was that they generalized these attributes to all the cultures of the East. So with this narrative, what happened, that this build up the perception, the image of the people of the East as non-human beings, and for this as a result, the Orients were regarded as uncivilized people, and and since they were the Western purpose, they and since they were refined race, the West, and so it was their duty to civilize the people, and the goal, in order to achieve their goal, and the goal was to colonize them as well as to rule the Orient. Why? Because the Orient, they are inactive, they are lazy, they are uncivilized, they are irrational, so they don't have the potential to make their own government and to be able to rule. So it's a kind of, in single inverted commas, a white man's burden to it was a white man's burden that they are as if they were going to orientalize the Orients. So it was from this perspective that it as if it was uh, the issue, as it was the responsibility of the civilized world of the West. So the use of this term Orientalism for the European was that they use this term, or the they use this term to define themselves, and as a result, it was and one key aspect, as mentioned, was that they generalized the cultures of the Orients. Another so when we look at this point, we see that here uh, the it was a deliberate construction of the reality to justify that why the cultures of the East are to be ruled, uh, or the people of the East were to be ruled by the people of the West. Uh, with this regard, we further move forward and find out that uh, another contribution to expand the meaning and understanding of postcolonial theory was the Subaltern Studies. Subaltern Studies, this Subaltern, the meaning is of inferior rank in the army, and uh, it was a general attribute given to the subordination in South Asian society, whether it is in the case of class, caste, age, gender, and office, or in any other way. Gayatri Spivak in this regard is an important figure. It is in her critical work, in her essay "Can the Subaltern Speak?" that she actually expanded this, or her main focus was women as that how women are marginalized, so that they always get the inferior position or the secondary position in the male dominant society, or the marginalized role is given to women. So in this regard, according to Spivak, that women are exploited, and they are underestimated in the post-colonial literature. Although this is the term, the military term, but it is used someone of the inferior rank, even in the of the lower rank, and that she referred to the lower status of women in the society. So she is actually highlighting critically the marginalized status of women in the society. Uh, in this regard, if we can say that her chief contribution was adding to this term subaltern, along with the essentialism or strategic essentialism, and if we see, so she has actually what how the, did her work actually contributed to address the still um, um, expansion that post-colonial studies required at that time, especially and this was one of the concerns of hers, that women in post-colonial literature, they are highlighted, uh, they are marginalized just as they are being marginalized in the society. Apart from another major contribution in expansion of postcolonial theory was the name is Homi Bhabha, his concept of hybridity. Now, uh, Bhabha actually raises the issue of cultural identity. Before that, he is actually uh, is concerned with the hybridity in this sense, that all these cultures, they are confluenced in one another, and as a result the cultures cannot be separated. Uh, with another his the issue he has also raised is the cultural identity, that cultural identity in this sense that the native cultures, they have been westernized, as if the term he uses is mimicry, that the native cultures, they are imitating the western cultures. And what is the effect that this process is taking place, or has is this process is being continued without knowing the cultural demolition of natives. So he from this issue, so the term which he has used is mimicry, and with this case it means that this issue of colonialism, it has affected not only the colonizer, but also the colonized as well as the colonizer. Now, with this, we say that uh, the, this post-colonial theory, it has made expansion, it has been expanded, um, uh, mainly on the with the contribution on the foundation contribution of Oriental of Edward Said, Homi Bhabha, Spivak, and Homi Bhabha.